Thank you so much, Nicoletta. And thank you to Patricia and LaDonna and to Ricky and all the organizers, everybody who's involved in this World Protocol Matters. Truly, it's quite outstanding. And I'm going to tell you some ways it's really outstanding and ways has a great future. That's what I'm going to talk about today. It's extremely important to see how this World Protocol Matters fits into diplomacy as a whole, and yet it's citizen diplomacy, because it was started by citizens of the world citizens, who came together with an idea and began promoting it. And in fact, it's public diplomacy in action. It is a real public diplomacy campaign, which I'm going to describe to you. Let me give a little bit of background, though, at first, to say, as Nicoletta mentioned, I do teach now for the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITAR, and I teach public diplomacy and cultural diplomacy. I teach speech writing, by the way. I teach strategic communications and diplomacy and the media. And especially in my public diplomacy and cultural diplomacy courses, I'm always looking for examples of public diplomacy in action by nation states, of course, with their diplomats, their official diplomats, examples from international organizations like the United Nations, UNICEF, FAO, et cetera, as well as NGOs, non-governmental organizations that have a diplomatic cause or a diplomatic purpose. And I also look for examples of citizen diplomacy that is stepping out in the world and bringing causes, important issues to the fore, and often leading international organizations and leading nation states, meaning being ahead of the curve. I want to say that the organizers of World Protocol Matters did not ask me to give this particular talk. They just asked me to give a talk. It suddenly came into my head, wow, you know what? I've been watching this amazing organization and what's been happening. I've been watching for more than 3 years now. And I realize that this is a great example. But I want to say, and in fact, first I thought, okay, public diplomacy in action. I thought, well, I'll interview Nicoletta and Donna and Patricia, and I'll get what they had their ideas in the first place. Then I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give my own analysis based on my observations of World Protocol Matters. And ladies, please do not be, and Ricky, please do not be nervous that I'm going to analyze. But in fact, this is so, I want to say in advance, I'm not put up to this. This is complete surprise to all of them, what I'm going to say. And I may be correct or slightly incorrect. I think I'm correct. So we're always looking for examples of public diplomacy in action, and actually what I call public diplomacy campaigns, for teaching purposes and for inspiration to my many students. And by the way, my students with UNITAR and global online courses, any of you could be the students in these UNITAR courses. They are open to the world, and my students are on 6 continents. I keep hoping to have somebody who's working in Antarctica take the courses, but they're all ages. Everyone, they go from high school students, sometimes university students, and all the way, I suspect, to people in their 90s, maybe almost 100. I don't know. So let me step back, and first of all, and I'm going to tell you a little story that's similar to one I told last year, but I think it's terribly important in this whole conference. The whole conference is about protocol, promoting protocol. You have a wonderful theme: diplomacy connects, protocol unites. a world of civility reimagined. All of this is great. But a lot of the conversation, and I think, implies that this is happening now. But I want to just quickly take us back. I'm a social cultural anthropologist, and I like to think of human beings and human society. So even if you've heard me say this before, I'm going to tell you again because I want you to have it in your mind. What happened at the beginning of human beings? Probably a citizen or an individual went out into the bush, into the savannah or into the woods, and met someone from another group. They became friendly and they said, oh, and they tried to communicate. The individual, the citizen of the little tiny society went back, maybe both of them went back to their respective groups, and they said, we need to bring our groups together. We need to get us together. And so they came together, they met, maybe they ate food if they, weren't afraid of being poisoned. They maybe had athletics. There was a speaker, somebody trying to translate. And the fact of the matter is that probably an individual, a citizen we would call today, a citizen diplomat, started this basic exchange relationship, which was in fact the beginning of diplomacy. And guess what? They also began to set up rules so that it would stay civil. And so they made a framework, which everybody's talking about, protocol as a framework, as what undergirds positive relations, undergirds everything that even unconsciously we don't know. So I'll go back to this. And the other thing that was unique, and this is long before history I'm talking about. This is the beginning of human beings. And they did this, and it led on. Diplomacy and protocol were there, and the diplomacy was public because the people in the different groups knew what was going on. I mean, maybe the leaders eventually met in secret little meetings, but people would know about that because gossip, of course, people spread it around. So my point being is that what we're talking about goes back to the beginning of human beings. And I believe that diplomacy and protocol are the foundation of our human society. Now, what was their goal in what did they think about? They went back, they met, they went back. What were they thinking about? Well, in fact, what started as little tiny groups became ultimately international, and then when there were states and nations, etc. They had what I would call a little campaign. And the campaign is a project, a plan for sharing ideas, for getting what your view is out and having other people accept it. And that is the campaign. And so what, I think there's something jumped in, but anyway, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, it was something else. Something else came in here. So what was their goal? They had a campaign, and a campaign to reach a goal. So what I am saying is, I'm watching World Protocol Matters. Basically, you have the people who established this, all of you, you had a campaign. I suspect you wrote it out, you wrote out some plans, you had some strategic plans. Maybe you just started with an idea, which is usually the way a campaign starts, and then you formalize it. But the formality of the plan, is not the final. It changes all the time. So in my teaching about public diplomacy, one of the points about a public diplomacy is actually a tool of diplomacy. The tool being that it is to get the message out to the public, to the world, to the local public, to the big world. And therefore, the campaign, that is the purpose. the public diplomacy campaign needs to align with, be completely aligned with the main strategic goal of a diplomatic goal in the case of a nation state, what their foreign policy is. Their public diplomacy needs to reflect that. And you have many, many little campaigns and big campaigns, but all of the campaigns, all the public diplomacy or cultural diplomacy campaigns need to reflect the foreign policy. In the case of an international organization, it needs to reflect the mission. It can't be something else. It can't be talking about something else. In the case of a citizen diplomat's plan, a campaign, in your case, in the case, and I say your, because, and it's ours now, it's the World Protocol Matters is an idea. The idea being people didn't know what, had forgotten that protocol's been with us since the beginning of human beings. They forgot. They didn't know. They had negative ideas about a protocol. The belief of the original group with the campaign, which we're now part of, and we believe, is to spread this idea of the value, the role, and the value of protocol. World Protocol Matters. Now, within a campaign, you can have sub-campaigns. And the sub-campaigns, of course, should reflect back on and be promoting the main diplomatic goal. The main diplomatic goal of this citizen diplomacy group, I would say, is World Protocol Matters. Now, sub-campaign is World Protocol Day. And the World Protocol Day is an idea like, oh, well, and I don't know, I didn't talk to them and ask them. They said, hey, we're promoting protocol. We're promoting protocol in the world. We should have a day like all these other days, you know, World Tuna Day last week. And I'm a big supporter of World Tuna Day because my PhD is on the Maldives and I support it. And, you know, World Polar Bear Day and World Negotiation Day, et cetera, et cetera. There are many of them. So this becomes a sub-campaign in that. And I'm just going to run through it quickly because this is not the main part. But in a campaign, you have an idea, and then if you're writing it down and you make a template and the template changes, but you keep following it, the main thing that you're looking for is to make sure you have a title, a catchy title, World Protocol Matters. And then you have things like the themes of this year. These are very catchy. Diplomacy Connects, Protocol Unites, a world of civility, reimagined. This becomes, so the conference itself is a sub-campaign, and it reflects back on this. Then we have time frames, okay? Initially, you didn't know where it would go. And you idea, well, it may take years, we don't know. But let's start with the first year. The idea, let's have the World Protocol Matters in 2022. Then we do 2023. From 2022, we learned, and we had evaluation. The first ones were 3 days, now we're 2 days. So this result of evaluation. We also, in a public diplomacy campaign, we have public diplomacy, we have a media plan. And we also, and that includes not only social media today, but it also includes starting with speeches, turning the speeches, as Dr. Nicoletta said, turning the speeches and the talks into articles. And the articles go out, and then the articles are put on social media, and it keeps multiplying. And that is all part of the public diplomacy. And also, then you have partners. Look at the partners on this, on here. You started with about 3. You now have, I think, 7 or 8 or 9, 10, and then you have organizers and sponsors. These are all people. These bring in the resources. You have to decide what your resources are. You look at your media plan, and then you use traditional public diplomacy tools, speeches, conferences. Well, the conferences are online. What an amazing thing. We have technology. Next year, we may be in person and online. So we take advantage of everything to get the message out. That is the purpose. I would say, and I'm going to say, that all of this is citizen diplomacy, and it's also, we said World Protocol Day. We get the message out. It's out on social media. We're all talking about it. People are starting to hear about it. We start talking to member states of the UN, all 93 of them, 193, or whatever, and other international organizations. We get them to support. We go to the UN General Assembly, and we get this approved as an international day. All a campaign. Public, it's all public diplomacy, because diplomacy in this case is bringing people together, uniting people, ideally for peace. That's what we hope. I would add, and I've said this before, that it's very important to recognize that when we're talking about a citizen diplomacy campaign, citizen diplomacy campaigns can be extremely successful, as this already is, and it has far to go. We had, just as an example, in the early 1990s, a woman by herself named Jody Williams, who had been in Central America and saw all the landmines. And then she began to learn landmines were all over the world, and highly destructive and dangerous and horrible weapons. And she started a campaign. This is before emails, before internet, writing letters from her kitchen in the state of Vermont in the United States. And then trying to get, and went to the UN and talked individually. She was a citizen all by herself. And then she established a whole international organization. Ultimately, we've got an anti-landmine treaty as a result of this single person starting out as a citizen diplomat. Another example is Wangari Maathai in Kenya, the late wonderful Wangari Maathai, and her daughter is carrying it on. She started planting trees in Kenya, just on the slopes of Mount Kenya. And then eventually it became a green, spread around as a national and then international organizations for green. She also, both of them won the Nobel Peace Prize. I would like to just give you one other little story that I have in my life. It's that when I went in the Peace Corps and I was young, in my early 20s, right out of university, undergraduate, and I went to be a teacher in Kenya as a Peace Corps volunteer. That meant that I was living at very grassroots levels, and I was teaching in a school. And I remember, of course, we didn't have phones or email in those days. I wrote my father. I was miserable that I thought, well, I'm just in this little school. I thought I would be able to have more of an impact to help people. And I thought there would be more people to help, whatever. And my father wrote me a letter. Took a week or so, got back to Kenya, and it said, "Dear Liz, if you can have an influence on 2 or 3 people, that's what's important. It's step by step. And that's what this is doing. So I congratulate you. I am amazed and impressed with what you're doing. You're a great example of public World Protocol Matters and the sub-campaign, World Protocol Day. These are all very important public diplomacy campaigns because they are global and they are teaching people around the world about the value and the importance of protocol. It's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. We need to let people know that. So World Protocol Matters, World Protocol Day, and is going to happen, I believe. And these are all protocol, public diplomacy in action. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Colton. I can't believe you put this whole thing together. Seriously, this is exactly how it all happened a few years ago with Colton and Patricia. You were reading our minds, or I don't know how you did that. But seriously, we went through this path step by step, and we put this project together with some sub-projects or sub-campaigns. I can't believe you had this all. You had us all figured out.
Well, that's my job, is thinking about public diplomacy campaigns. And as I said, I'm always looking for examples. And now I'm going to be sharing this with my students around the world. And
Oh my
what is
God.
that? That is another public diplomacy thing. It's part of your campaign. You didn't plan me. You didn't plan that. But I'm now spreading the word. As each of us here, every single participant in this whole conference spreads the word. And that is the multiplier effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Phenomenal.
what's your suggestion how we should plan our next steps to really reach UN General Assembly floor and the desks and this
Well, I'd be happy to
proposal?
advise on it, but I think the big thing is for each to reach out to your, if you can get to your ambassadors, your UN ambassadors, to get them to talk. A couple of years ago, the president of the UN General Assembly was a good friend of mine, and I can reach to him. And he's in the Maldives, Abdullah Shahid. But I know the connections to the current president of the UN General Assembly. So it's reaching to all of these to get, and then to find someone who can, do it in the proper way, to put something forward.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. That would be great.
But the big thing is that you're getting the message out, and the message is building all the time. And that's the public diplomacy of it. You've built and built and built, and people know. And there's in my view, and I see Philip is here, she's the protocol expert of the world. And she really is. And but I think what you all have done in just a few short years has really been a positive messaging and effects on perceptions of protocol.
Yeah. I think I agree.
Thank you so much. That's been the goal. I don't know, like I was nervous where you were going, Dr. Colton.
I didn't want, you knew that I wasn't, no, but it's all positive.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
We shall spare no effort till it's done, Dr. Carter. We shall spare no effort.
Yeah.
And that sub-campaign, the UN is on the list. When we first came together 3 years ago, we had this rough, like they say on the back of a napkin, of how we get to 11 May. But we knew we would have this campaign to take time, to build momentum, to get the word out, to bring people together, to understand the goal and the desire. Even there's this whole list that Nikki has put together, and I've provided her some information on why the 11th of May. So we have done some of that work, and it helps us to have someone at your level who understands, to give us this feedback. And we expect and look for that feedback from all the participants, as you stated, with the days and how we build this going forward. And we just continue to do this. We are at the service of everyone on this call to use our platforms, our connections, to really bring the attention to the work that we do. So thank you very much.